welcome again to Unplug It as we track towards round 22. There's probably a little bit of a somber feeling leading into this one on the back of what we all saw last week. We will dissect that, but the most important thing to remember, and I think it has been lost in a lot of it, is that we are still alive. There is still a pulse. It might not feel like it, given what that felt like on Sunday, but ultimately the season rolls on. A big thank you to Michael Egan and Phil Deladakis for stepping in over the last couple of weeks. It's nice to be back in the chair. As always, if you are a new or regular listener to Unplug It, leave us a review if you haven't done so on whatever your platform is, so iTunes, Facebook, Spotify, etc. And you can jump on the socials, and we're also on Threads too, whatever that is. I'll have to get Nick to explain that to me at some point, but that is the new
Never mind.
thing. That's right. But something that was my sort of wheelhouse when I was younger was Saintsational. A lot of Saints fans probably built their own community through Saintsational and got to know a lot of other people through that. We used to organise games of footy back in the day, which we might be able to talk about somewhere down the line via Saintsational, but head to saintsational.net. It's basically a forum and a community where you can just chat about the Saints all the time amongst like-minded brethren. But we'll bring the panel in. Finals still in our own hands. I think that's the important thing to remember. But Nick, I'll start with you. Looking at Sunday, first half, we were very, very good. The pressure was as good as I've seen it all year. And I think losses like that are some of the hardest to take. I mean, you can lose games by a point. You can lose games where you're terrible and you get beaten by 80 and you got no idea what actually happened. But these are the losses that are, I think, hardest to take, in that we had the game, certainly wasn't sewn up, but we were in complete control at halftime. Carlton couldn't score. Our run and carry was hurting them. Our pressure was all over them. And then we just stopped. Obviously, there were a couple of chances late in the second quarter to push the margin out further. We should have led by probably more than 5 goals, but it doesn't matter. We probably should have won anyway. And ultimately, you walk away from a game thinking, are we ordinary in that we just stopped and they rose the bar and we couldn't go with them? Or did we lack leadership? Did we turn our toes up? Did the pressure get to us? Either way, it's a bad feeling, but you're just trying to figure out, I guess, just how bad.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, incredibly frustrating. First off, incredibly frustrating. But when you look at it, I guess holistically, it's a bit of our entire season in a microcosm. You know, we played some very good football. It certainly wasn't our most polished football for parts of the first half, but we outran them. We worked harder. Our work ethic was great. Our pressure was immense, like you said, and then. I think there are a few things that cost us. Like you mentioned those chances at the end of the second quarter. There's Max King running into an open goal with the defender trailing behind him. Gresham, instead of kicking the top of the square from the run onto, turns and centers behind King. He's got a double back into two defenders. That would have been essentially an easy goal that we've lost. I think they went up and scored, had a shot at the other end after that. Obviously, the holding the ball. In the goal square to Butler.
The remarkable thing about that holding the ball, Nick, is that there are people who have watched the replay now and still think it was play on. Anyway.
Yeah. Look, I don't know what to say. I thought I'm not one to bash umpires. I don't normally complain about umpires, but I thought that was the worst game umpired I've seen this season. I thought it was awful, and that was just one of the poor decisions in a series of poor decisions over the course of the game. But like I said, we outworked them. Our pressure was good in that first half. Like you said, we should have been 5 or 6 goals up at halftime. But then the script just flipped, right? Like they outworked us. They ran harder. They wanted it more. They outplayed us completely, and we just didn't go with them. And it just is incredibly frustrating when you see us play good footy in long patches. You see us play good footy and then just completely fall to pieces. And I don't know how it happens.
It's slow motion pain, H, really. I mean, at 3/4 time, you're 8 points up and you think you're still a chance if you can kick the first of the last quarter. And obviously we missed that one on 3/4 time with Max. But it was pretty obvious early in the last that we're in a bit of bother. But I think we've spoken a lot on this podcast about trust, I guess. And one thing that I always trusted with St Kilda is that when they brought that level of intensity, they usually stayed that way and won when they had games like that. that's probably the first time I've seen that completely vanish within a game, and that obviously rocks your foundations of trust a little bit, thinking, hang on a second, they could switch that off at any moment.
Yeah, I mean, it was a game where we sent out two completely different teams from the first half and the second half. And as we said all along, it was going to be a match we had to take every opportunity we got. It was never going to be okay, we half play well, we win. That's exactly what we saw. We half played well. We played a brilliant first half and an absolutely ordinary second half. I'd even say the fourth quarter, we didn't even turn up.
Yeah,
It was literally half the team did not turn up in the last quarter. It is pretty hard to watch when you sort of see your leaders, Steele, Crouch, like the two of them combined, getting one tackle between them in the last quarter, and that was it. Nothing else. It's you sort of think, where was that first half? Where did it go? That first half, we played football. We were absolutely smashing the team who had just beaten the premiership favourites the week before. We absolutely outplayed them like you would not believe. And if you, people gave you the opportunity to be 22 up at half time against Carlton, you'd be going, where do we sign? Give that to us now. Let's start from there. It was a whole thing of what happened. What did we change? Why did we change? And that's the question we want to know. Carlton probably switched their game plan up a little bit, but we did react. We didn't allow for knowing that they were going to throw everything at it. Because they were always going to. They were always going to throw everything they had at that second half, because there was no way they were going to accept that first half. And as we've seen a few times this year, we just weren't ready. We weren't ready for it. We allowed it to happen. And yeah, it's just, where is that stop button to stop a team doing that to us? Because, yeah, we got to find it. We got to find that button and go, stop teams doing that to us as soon as we realize, hang on, something's changed here and we need to get that momentum back again.
Paco, I want to throw something at you because you weren't on last week, but we had a question from the socials asking, what do we mean when we talk about Saints footy? You know, we talk about it a lot. It's on the socials, it's the hashtag, etc.
Yeah.
And I guess a little bit cheekily, like, is Saints footy the first half of last week or is it the second half of last week? Like, what is Saints footy?
Yeah, it's a look, there's an ideal about what Saints footy is supposed to be, I guess. What it is isn't necessarily the same thing. I guess it's like North Melbourne with a shin bone of spirit. I mean, if they lose by 100 points, it doesn't mean shit, really. But I guess for us, it's, you know, I think we've built, certainly under Ross, you look at things like pressure, intensity, non-negotiables and that type of stuff. And I don't think, you know, I think we've been a lot better than people give us credit for. We've been in the 8 all year, and we're still a chance to stay there. Obviously, we've got a bit of work to do. I think there's been a fair bit of doom and gloom around a year that ultimately has been probably better than most people expected. However, I think, as H was sort of saying, there's been a few times this year where we've lacked maturity in key moments in matches. The Brisbane game with the occasion, dealing with the injuries against Melbourne, we kind of fought pretty hard, but there were times where we changed the way we were playing in that game. Certainly the Gold Coast, we should have seen that coming. Richmond in
The first
Hodgson's
Richmond game,
300th, we should have seen that coming. We knew Carlton were going to come at us here. We're a bit lazy against Hawthorn the first time. Just little things like that, you know, go away from those mantras of the non-negotiables. And I guess the last quarter of this game, as said, that the wheel had turned. I mean, there are certain things in games, like, you know, that teams do certain things well and they can beat you in those areas and you can still beat them in the game. Like, Carlton are a very good clearance side. You probably expect that they might edge you in that department. They might get a little bit more contested ball, but you can still win the game. But you can't win the game if you get absolutely obliterated in those areas. And I think when Carlton hit the front in the second half, it was 18 clearances to 2. Like, you just cannot possibly compete with that level of domination.
They were winning the clearances in the first half.
And that's okay.
You know, when we were 5 goals up, they were winning the clearances.
Yeah, but it was like, I think it was 20-16 or something, which is fair enough. As long as you're competitive in that area, you might get them in other parts. But we just could not touch the ball. And you can't get beaten that badly in a game like that. When you've got inside mids with, guys like Steele and Crouch, as you say, Hunter Clark. I mean, we changed a few things up, which was a bit surprising. Obviously, Owens went out of the bounces. Sinclair moved up the ground to give a bit of polish. Stocker came on to replace Filippo. Our defensive and midfield structure changed a little bit. But I think Ross mentioned it in the press conference. We just couldn't lay a glove on them. We could not get the ball. And look, it's surprised we lost by 19. To be honest, it felt like we were going to lose by 7 goals with that level of control. So
yeah, it did feel like they were going to just roll on in that last quarter. I mean, you had the point where Paddy Dow was being ready to be subbed, and I don't know, something just clicked in his mind and kicked the goal. And next thing you know, he was the best player for the rest of the match. He it just got off the chain, and everything just kind of worked for them in that, I guess, quarter and a half, right up to the end of the match. And we probably were, as you say, lucky to not lose by 40 points or so in the end. It was probably the fact that Wilkie only had 1 goal kicked on him, and that was unlucky for himself as well. The fact that he had Wood, who was following, I can't remember who it was that handballed it to Curnow in the end, but that was Wood's player. Wilkie looks up and sees the 2 players. He's had to chase both of them. Handball out, easy goal. Wood keeps his feet there. Wilkie keeps Curnow goalless. And that's just those simple little things that you go change, just those small things in a match, and a result can change. And that's just the small things we've got to work on, the small things we've got to find and change. And just, again, I think we've actually seen this week that hole that Dougal has left. We were talking about last week. It wasn't as obvious against Hawthorn because we did well. It was reasonably obvious against Hawthorn. They still played good football. Their forward line still worked well. We scored enough to counteract that. This week, when we probably needed just that last defender to fill that hole, to take away that ball out of the back line, to get that intercept mark and that sort of thing, just to change it up. Because yes, we got a reasonable back line still, but just that experience and leadership that we had lost in that position. There's the other thing that probably changes how their forward line structured up, and it's frustrating to see. Just okay, we're missing that. We know we're missing that going in. I mean, yes, they didn't have Mackay either, but yeah, it'd just be nice to have been able to capitalize on that point we had where we were 4 goals up, and as we're saying, should have been 5-6 goals up at least. But there again.
And look, psychologically, that changes the game. Like, people can talk about, it's 1 umpiring decision. 5 goals as opposed to 4 changes the game. Like, it doesn't mean you definitely win, but the task for Carlton is harder. So psychologically, they're different. We approach the second half differently. So I won't cop that it didn't have an impact. It certainly did, but what can you do? Yeah.
I want to ask you guys about the structure. Oh, you talk about the structure, and we knew going in that things are not ideal without Dougal Howard. I think, like we said last week, H, I think we did, maybe not we, because I think we've kind of had agreed already in the past, but I think the fan base as a whole kind of understood the value of Dougal Howard after the last couple of weeks. But the structure changing throughout the game, the sub of Filippo to Stocker. H, you and I spoke pre-game about who was going to be the sub and what was that sub strategy, and I still have question marks about playing Stocker as a sub. I really like Liam Stocker. I think he's in our best 22 pretty much every week, and I wouldn't be dropping him, playing him as a sub. He'd be in the starting lineup. But the impact of having a defensive type player rather than an impact player who can come on and go and make things happen, like a Billings or a Gresham, a couple of weeks ago or whatever, I guess bothered me a little bit. But then the actual change to take Filippo off, who wasn't having a stunning game, but I thought he was having an impact when he did touch the ball. When I don't think he was awful. I don't think he was poor. I thought he was pretty good actually. And every time he got near it, something seemed to happen. So I was a bit confused by the change itself. Well, I mean, what did you guys make of that sub?
Yeah, I also think of our lockdown defenders. Obviously, Webster had struggled a little bit in terms of some of the one-on-one stuff in recent times. And yes, Stocker, I think he took 11 marks against Hawthorn and 6 intercept or something of that note. I thought he was in our best 6 or 7 players in that game. So he was pretty stiff to miss out. And it's interesting. It goes back to early in the year when Ross said something about him at a presser saying that, he's still got a bit of work to do when everybody was talking him up. And I'm like, there's something that he's not liking or something. I know he's made a couple of mistakes, but on the most part, not really. He's been pretty reliable. Has made good decisions, put himself in good positions, done some really solid 1%er work. So, but he's also not the type of player that would be a sub. You don't have shutdown subs usually. I know they had Ed Kerno, who's a tagger, but it would have made more sense.
We've had Patton as a sub before, but they've played him as a winger
Burns and Windy and stuff.
Kind of,
yeah. It would have made more sense, I think, to have Billings or I know Billings didn't play reserves either, so there might have been an issue there.
Yeah,
but even Bytel or something like that as sub.
Yeah, I wasn't all that sold on the Billings sub either. I just don't feel he's been playing enough to have that impact that we may have needed. He played against Hawthorn, yes, went okay, but I just don't think he was going to come on and be that match winner or something. It wasn't going to make that change that was going to win us the game. Whether we were trying to use Stocker as that maybe attacking defender rather than a shutdown defender, because he seemed to be playing loose rather than actually picking up on someone. He was trying to pick that ball off, get us drive us through the middle again, and but yeah, I couldn't see Billings being a match winner if he was the one who was coming in. We probably, I don't know, do we really have someone who we look at and go, wow, that would be a sub that makes a difference to a game? I just don't feel like we have that player. We don't have a player who's going to come on and light the place up. So
Harris maybe, but again, he's too young.
Yeah, he's quite young. That's
probably Gresham, to be honest. Because
he's
lively,
probably the best.
I know his decision making is poor, but he's lively and crafty, reasonably quick without being lightning, and fairly clever around goal. Like
and unpredictable.
Exactly. So he would be. You'd almost play Stocker and sub Gresham instead.
Yeah, and that's probably a better idea too, because Stocker should have been in the team, as Nick was saying. He should have played. There's no doubt about
Smalls,
that.
Martin and
so just that whole situation there, you sort of just wonder what was happening there. So it's a one that maybe a decision that, as we're saying, could have been a match changing decision, just the wrong way.
Looking at the votes from that particular contest, I've made a little bit of a change on the run to mine. I initially had 3 Wood, 2 Crouch, but I've gone 2 to Mason Wood, only based on watching some of the game back. I mean, he was very good with 36 possessions and 14 marks, a few turnovers, but I thought he was trying to make things happen. So he certainly gets an equal share of BOG. Brad Crouch, 31, 30 up till 3/4 time. And Kel Wilkie gets 2 votes for the job that he did on Charlie Curnow. I was probably a little harsh on him to only give him 1 initially. I thought Butler should have kicked 3 in the first half, kicked 2. I thought his pressure was telling, won a lot of holding the ball free kicks. I thought Mitch Owens, first half especially, with clearances and possessions, but there's a lot of guys that are getting votes on first half work, and I thought he was taken out of a dangerous position a little bit, which limited him after half time. I thought Wanganeen Miller, not his best game, but was solid enough, used the ball well enough, and I thought Hunter Clark, probably our second best midfielder over the course of the game behind Crouch, albeit again sort of in and out of the game, but gets the 1 vote. Nick, how did you see it?
Pretty similar. I gave a couple of blokes 2 votes. I think you're right. I think Mason Wood would have been the standout BOG had he not had those, was it 11 clangers, 11 turnovers, something like that. And some of them were really distinct, important turnovers across the wing and across half forward, which really impacted. I think 3 or 4 of those turnovers directly ended up with a shot on goal or a scoring attempt. And so that was really important. So I gave 2 votes to Mason Wood. I gave 2 votes to Cal Wilkie just for the job that he continues to do. Wasn't his greatest game, but he was very, very solid again. I thought Rowan Marshall's performance was a bit underrated. He just continues to work. Even when he's not dominating, he works himself into games, and I thought he used his body really well. He presented, he went forward and kicked the first goal of the game, and was just an impact player for us. And I think that he's just, he continues to grow and develop as a ruckman. And I think that he's a very, very good player. And I gave 1 to Josh Battle. I thought he was pretty good. And again, Cal Wilkie gets a lot of the plaudits, but I thought Battle was pretty good too. And then 1 vote each to Crouch, Butler, and Clark for all of the reasons that you've given already.
H.
Yeah, it was a fair spread this week. Trying to no, I guess, standouts, as we've seen already. And basically, I gave 2 to a whole bunch of Wood, Crouch, Battle, and Wilkie. I reckon Josh Battle's game was quite underrated, I thought. I think it ended up 11 intercepts in the match, which, counteracted, I guess, Wood's 11 turnovers. So it was, the two of them sort of cancel each other out there. So Crouch, again, worked hard until, he disappeared in the last quarter. But he wasn't alone. So that was that. And then, gave 1 to Sinclair, 1 to Clark. Clark started well, but I think he's another one that really dropped away. I thought he was actually going to have a really good day after his first half there, but just didn't go through from there. If he'd probably repeated his first half, he probably may have been, I guess, close to getting to a best on ground, but it was a bit of an annoying one where we just these players who started well just didn't continue on.
Yeah, a lot of players getting votes across the board because we didn't have enough, I guess, standout players, and it's probably reflective of the lack of players standing up in the last quarter to put a stop to the momentum that was running against us. Our next special guest, we haven't had one for a little while, so good to check in back into the 90s, which has been one of our favourite eras to look back on. Very good footballer. Obviously didn't finish his career with the Saints, but was an outstanding player during a brief period that he was with us as part of a dynamic forward line. I speak of Craig O'Brien.
Out they come them. We didn't. It was Grant taken away with Taylor. Got it over Shanahan now with the football. Into the centre of the ground. Thumped away by Hinkley. Kicked off the ground by Dwyer. Steve Hocking had a chance. And ricochets off an opponent's body to Pekin. Pekin to Anderson. Anderson can't pick up the football. Now he taps it further. Over towards his teammate Harvey. Harvey handballs to O'Brien. And O'Brien kicks. And O'Brien goals for St Kilda.
Anderson hurt for St Kilda.
And that's goal number 3 to O'Brien, and they lead by, 30 points, do they?
Yep.
30-point lead now to St Kilda. And boy, have they ripped away to a quick start in this quarter.
Well, our next special guest on Unplugged is part of a not-so-rare 3-club these days, but Craig O'Brien played 114 games across the journey with Essendon, St Kilda and Sydney. It included a grand final alongside his old mate Plugger at the Swans in 1996, but fair to say that St Kilda probably got the best of him, 52 games and 116 goals along the way, including 53 goals in 1994, second only to Tony Lockett that year. Craig, thank you very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure, guys. Hope you're all well.
Going along nicely. So 114 games, I guess it's always curious when players split the allegiances across the 3 clubs. Obviously, you nearly won a flag with Sydney. You played some outstanding footy with the Saints, and Essendon gave you the start. Where does your heart lie, or is it a bit of all 3 places?
Oh, look, I'd have to say Sydney, to be honest, because I suppose when you move into state, the only friends you got are your footy friends. So I probably met a lot more closer friends at Sydney than I did at the other two clubs. But having said that, with all the AFL players that you actually play with, you probably only got a handful of close friends anyway. So, then we talk about the plugger and these guys, and I spent 8 years, so I don't talk to him a lot, but when we do talk, it's pretty close. And look, I coach his nephew at Broadbeach, so it's I've got a good relationship with the family still.
Probably should have left that question to the end, so all the St Kilda listeners don't turn off now. I don't want to listen to you. Having said that, Sydney's your club now. But mate, you spent a little bit of time at the Bombers. I think people probably forget about that period of your career. How did you end up coming to Moorabbin from Essendon?
Oh well, look, back in those days, it was actually an area. So I was obviously playing at Mornington Peninsula, and the zone that time was Essendon. So we used to get taxis up to training and taxis back to Rye. And we'd have about 3 or 4 stops on the way back, and then got to the period there where I was actually trying to get a game ahead of when Shetty went on his rampage and got all these South Australians, Western Australians. And it was just hard for us to get a game. Like there was Antrobus, Buicks. I mean, there was just so many Greg Andersons, Kieran Spawns. There were so many players there they brought across, and we just couldn't get a game ahead of them. So I just got too frustrated, and I just said, "Look, I've got to get out," because I thought I was doing a good enough job in the games I did play. I thought I was doing well enough to hold my spot, but it's just a pecking order. And I suppose if they're paying big money for these guys to come over, they always used to get first crack at it. So there's a few of us that got a bit disappointed with that and look for new homes.
So when you did come across, you pretty much played half the season in the first year. Did you come across thinking I'm going to get a game most weeks, or was it a case of, look, we're bringing you in, we're going to give you a go and see how you slot in?
Well, look, it was. I actually got rubbed out for 10 weeks, believe it or not, my first year at St Kilda. so I didn't go there and set the world on fire. And what I did is when I actually went away from the club for a while, and I trained with a boxer called Frank Ropus, who was Australian champion. So I kind of got myself pretty fit, and I think I played 5 games towards the end. It might have been 92 or 93 in the reserves, and I did pretty well. And then that kind of put me in good stead for the year after. And then once I got an opportunity, it was you don't really believe you've made that level of footy until you play consistent. And I had a couple of standout games, and then you got a bit of luck, and your body stays in there and it doesn't get injured. Then you can get yourself peak fitness. And I think towards the end of 90, might have been 93 or 94, I started to, become a forward, playing next to Tony. We had a good relationship, and one thing led to another, and that's how I ended up down at St Kilda.
Yeah, those last 6 games in 93, kicked 6 against Geelong, 4 against North, 4 against Sydney, 4 against Carlton in a rare win at Princess Park, and 5 against Richmond in the last game. Slotting into a forward line, obviously you got Lockett there. I know Stuart Lowe had some injuries a little bit during that period, but Lowe at centre-half forward, Lockett at full forward. You must feel like, a lot of balls going to get directed through those guys. And was it a balance of it might be hard to get a kick with the big boys down there, or was it a case of I'm going to get the third banana with them here?
Yeah, look, I was pretty lucky, fortunate enough that I used to play a lot of guys who were a lot smaller than me, and because I could, I suppose, take an overhead mark, I kind of got under the guard a lot of the time, especially early in my career, because such a focus was on, your lows and your lockets, that you did get off the chain a bit, and they tend to drop off you a bit. And if you can find space and be half dangerous, well, you actually can get used. And once they start to use you, they get more confidence in you, and you become a bit of a focal point when you know that the other two might be held. I think there was a game there, I think that we played at the MCG. I think we kicked 16 goals between the 3 of us. But Lowy played up the ground a lot more, and I had a really good relationship with Tony. One thing I learned was not to get in his way. We had an intra-club practice game at Moorabbin, and this bloke called Ian Dargy came over from Western Australia, and he was a pretty solid sort of a player. Anyway, he was in the opposite team to Tony and myself, and Plugger goes, "Listen, mate, don't get in my way like he did that again." He did it again, and Plugger put him on the Jordan frame. So I thought, well, I've got to stay behind him because he's such a big, powerful man. And I got a lot of the kicks over the back because they were focused on him. And then it came to a point there where the games that he wasn't there, I actually probably performed a little bit better because I was a bit more of a focal point.
Just before you jump in, Nick, I reckon that was the game at 94 against Essendon at the MCG, where St Kilda actually kicked 18 goals too. I think
that was right.
They hit the post the 2 times they missed, and Plugger kicked 6, and yourself and Stewie kicked 4 each. So it's a fair old picnic for the forwards that afternoon.
And I think when you look back now, when you look at the talent that we did have, I think we really underachieved when you had, Lowe, Lockett, obviously, Winmar, Burke, Harvey. We had a pretty good side, and if you had that sort of calibre in your sides in the AFL now, I think you'd be a bit disappointed if you didn't, be performing regularly in the finals, considering that we were getting beat pretty easily a lot of weeks there. So I think looking back now, we had a lot of talent, but just didn't think we performed to our maximum potential.
Craig, what was it that clicked for you kind of halfway through 93? I mean, you kicked 7-8 in your first 6 games in 93 and then ended the season with 24-8, as we kind of touched on already. What was it that changed for you, I guess, at that point? And what was the message kind of post 93 heading into 94, which was really kind of your big break in the forward line there?
Yeah, look, I just think I had to get the body right and just stay fit. I came across, I was pretty much of a hothead as a young fella, and I suppose you probably get a bit impatient. You just want to play the best footy you can. And, at that stage, I hadn't proved myself to anyone, so you had to get fit, have a bit of luck, and all of a sudden, when you do have that one little bit of luck, it actually changes for you. And once I did have that bit of luck, I got the confidence, and then the players around you get confidence in you, and you become more of a team involved player rather than being a bit selfish and trying to do it yourself. But having said all that, the role kind of suited me better. I played when I was at Essendon, I played more as a midfielder, but I suppose going forward, it probably helped my game a little bit, because I probably wasn't fit enough and didn't have the engine to play as a midfielder, whereas a forward, you can generally get away with it. Back in those days, I'm not too sure you do that now. And as I said, because I was kind of a strongish sort of player, I used to get small back pockets, so I could generally outmark them, and I think that's helped me a lot.
So talking about playing alongside Plugger, getting out of his way, setting a role, that sort of thing, was there any particular rules he may have walked up to you and given you, or a piece of advice for a particular day to say, just don't come near me today, or something like that? Is there any situations you recall?
Oh, look, he was an angry man, very angry man on the footy field. But look, he had a lazy eye, and I knew that. So if you watch a bit of footage, he'd like to lead to the left because he had a lazy right eye, so he couldn't really focus on the ball. He ended up getting an operation, so I'd lead to the other side, and that way we had a really good connection there. But a lot of the time too, depends on who you played on. So if I played on Ross Smith, who's a very good defender at North Melbourne, I couldn't get a kick on him, and he mentally had me shot. And it wasn't until I got to Sydney that I learned how to beat him. That was get him up the ground and work him back into the forward line. He didn't like getting out of his comfort zone. So when you do that, you lose him in traffic. You can tend to score a bit. So a lot of it came back to, okay, if I was having a good period, like I used to play Andy Collins a bit, and I had a lot of size on him, Plug would actually let me go in front of him. So he was as good as he was very unselfish and go, look, you're having a good period. You get up the ground, you do your work, and then I'll come in behind you. So once we had that good understanding, and we spent a lot of time together off the field, so we were kind of more mates than football buddies. So it kind of really worked, and we both respected each other's role. But look, when Tony Lockett's in the forward line, you feel like you're bulletproof. Really, I mean, he used to tackle blokes and hurt blokes, and you used to run around being cheeky because you knew he was right in your corner and he'd look after you, and that was a real positive.
Wonder how many goals he would have kicked if both the eyes worked. It would have been.
Well, look, imagine, just we all talk about it, and we kind of have jokes like that. But imagine how many goals he would have kicked now.
Yeah.
With you can't hit the hands, you got a 6.66, and he was kicking hundreds of goals and sides that were winning 3 and 4 games a year.
Yeah.
So everyone keeps saying how great he was. He's the best ever, and I don't think people. I think people understand it, but until you've actually seen what he did against poor, in a poor side for so long, how good the man really was.
Yeah, and a phenomenal kick for goal in the elements. So under the roof at Marvel, it's hard to see him missing too many these days in footy. So 94, obviously, the other transition was going from Ken Sheldon to Stan Elves. Obviously, he kicked 53 that year, 7 against Geelong in a narrow loss, 6 against Brisbane at the Gabba, and a couple of other good days. How did you find the difference between Kenny and Stan?
Oh, look, it's a good question because Stan Elves was more of a friend before he got the coaching job. Like I used to go down to training early and do a lot of skills with him, and we'd kick goals in the boundary line. He was such a nice sort of a guy, Stan, and he was a real young kid. Like he related to a lot of us young guys really well because he'd get there, he'd put the time into us. Probably didn't know he was ever going to coach there. But I think the one thing that people don't understand is when St Kilda like that, I thought Kenny Shelton was great for my career, but I reckon he was overshadowed by Peter Hudson as a coach. And I think halfway through the year or towards the end of the year, they sacked Peter Hudson, and Ken Shell was a completely different coach. He was a lot more fun to be around, and we had some lot better results when Peter Hudson had gone. I mean, we were doing some things at training, and we're looking at each other and go, what are we doing these training drills for? I don't know if you noticed Waverley, but it's a pretty big ground, and we had Russell Morris, who was a beautiful kick. We'd come through the middle of Waverley and kick the ball to the wing to Russell Morris. He's caught, and Peter Hudson used to go, let's kick it to Larry the Lurker. Well, you're actually going away from goal when you've got Lockett low and one into the ground, and you're running through the middle and kick it to the wing, and we're going, what's happening here? So then I think Ken Sheldon started to relax more as a coach, and I thought he coached really well, and you could see in our performance on that year that it was a shame to see him go. But then when Stan Ells took over, we didn't lose our friendship, but he became that coach, and you've got to respect that role. And, he didn't come down to the kicks with us and all that, but Stan was a very respected person. But it got to a point there where I'm not too sure if the club had a lot of respect in Stan Ells, because I signed with Sydney on the Friday night, and Stan Ells rang me on the Saturday afternoon and asked why I wasn't at training on the Saturday morning. And I said, are you serious? I said, I signed with Sydney. And he goes, what? You serious? I said, yeah. I signed with Sydney for 3 years. And he wasn't even informed. So I'm not too sure what was going on there, because, I had some good years at St Kilda, and I wanted to stay at St Kilda, but when there was Lowe, Burke and Winmar all signing in that same time, there was just no money left. And for my future, I had to go and look after myself, because, the game's very short, and every time I spoke to Sydney, there was an offer I couldn't refuse in the end, and then we just decided to go. And I didn't want to go. I love St Kilda, and I still... probably one of the, not a big regret, but one of the regrets was that they didn't give me a 3-year contract, which, I'll probably still be in Melbourne.
I mean, just on that, I mean, obviously St Kilda's known over history as having basically no money, being in debt all the time, not being able to pay players, etc. But what was and you don't have to go into details if you don't want to, but seriously, like one-to-one comparison, what you were getting at St Kilda to what Sydney offered you, like how big a difference was it?
Double. Yeah, and back then, I mean, I was only on. Look, I mean, it's chicken feed now. I was on about 65,000 a year at St Kilda, and I wanted to stay for 3 years. I would have played for 85 or 90 a year. But when I first spoke to Sydney, it was 100 plus. It ended up being 130 for 3 years, and moving everything up there. So but they had concession picks too. So what actually happened is I got traded for Jason Daniels, because Sydney could have taken 3 concession players anyway, and. They took. There was myself, Stewie Maxfield, and Kevin Dyson. But because they weren't going to get anything for me, they swapped me for Jason Daniels. So I ended up, Jack ended up back in St Kilda. But yeah, look, and it wasn't a hard decision in the end. I mean, I didn't want to make it, because I'd never been to Sydney. Everything I thought about Sydney was, the brothels and King's Cross and all that, the bad parts of Sydney. Well, that's all we ever did when we played up there. We used to go to King's Cross, but. Once I got up there, and it was a big move. I moved up before my wife had moved up. Tony Lockett was living in Engadine, and that was about an hour from the SCG. And we used to travel in there, and I'm thinking, this can't go on. Like it was just too far out. We get stuck in traffic every day, and it's like you're always in the car. So it wasn't until my wife moved up that I got more comfortable, and then we started playing. And because you don't know anyone there, you become very good friends with your close people that you play footy with, and then you travel with them. So I think why interstate clubs have the advantage over the Melbourne teams, because they get very close off the field, and so do their partners.
So 93, 94, 95 was a period that we, like just after 91, 92 finals, we were sort of there and thereabouts. We weren't bottomed out. We weren't making finals, but we're winning plenty of games, just missing out on finals. I think 93 we missed out by 2 games, but we were 14th on the ladder or something. It was pretty crazy season where it was really close. What do you think might have been just that one thing we may have needed just to push us through with those couple of years there that might have pushed us over the line?
Look, that's a really good question because we did have a lot of talent, but we just kept falling short. But we'd go out and play against a team and we'd look like the premiers. We'd be so good some weeks, but then we'd be so poor weeks after. Um, but I think a lot of that could be culture driven too, because St Kilda's always had that, they've won one flag over so many years. And the supporters probably keep saying, we're going to miss out again, we're going to miss out. There was none of that, hey, we're going all right, let's support them, let's get right behind them. It was always, here we go again. So, and that can sometimes bring a group down, as in it's all negative. So the difference between, say, coming from Essendon and St Kilda was a really shock to me, because Essendon were a very powerful professional club that, just the way they operated were completely different. It was like going from, looking back now, from an AFL to a Mornington Peninsula. The way they trained, the way they had their off-field set up. So I think that had a lot to do with it, that we didn't have the right infrastructure to make us a professional team. And then when I ended up going to Sydney, it was completely different. Like, we had Rodney Eade, we were on the verge of being a good side. We had the NRL war with the Super League. So, and we lost our first 5 games or 4 games, got booed off the SCG. To finish minor premiers was massive. So then we had all, Sydney people going, how great are the Swans? And that was just a boost that you needed. Whereas, how shit are the Swans? You'd probably still be shit now. So I just think it's a culture thing with St Kilda people that, hey, they're going to come good at some stage, but get support them while they're not good. And then the players get that confidence on the footy field and they deliver. Because we did have talent. We had a lot of talent.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, I mean, how does that change? Having come from somewhere like Essendon and played it at Sydney, but who controls that culture change? Is it from within the club, or is it the fan base? Like, how do you see that changing at a club like St Kilda?
I mean, we talk about, the shinbone of spirit. You talk about, the Bloods at Sydney, and what the Bloods is, it comes from the hierarchy. They don't accept mediocrity. They've got to be fully in control of what's happening. And if you look back at St Kilda, there was a lot of the hierarchy we had issues with off the field and stuff like that. So when you talk about blood, Bloods for life, it actually is a culture. So you don't want to do anything wrong. You really love doing the best you can, but you're getting pushed to be the best you can. So, we talk about, the Richmond when they were strong, they felt indestructible because you're so good off the field that you become a powerful unit on the field. And if you can't get off the field right, you're never going to get on the field right. And I've even noticed that, coaching at, Queensland footy, that if you don't get it right off the field, you've got no chance on the field. And I think St Kilda never got it right. They didn't really have a home. They didn't know where they were going. They were playing at, Moorabbin, and they were moving to Waverley. So a lot of that stuff, like the culture of the disco after the games was great for the players, but is that what really was required for St Kilda to be a better football team? So if you look at it's driven, standards get driven by the people around them, and they've got to stay driven those standards. And then you need your senior players to carry on driving those standards and setting them higher. And when you get that, we had some great leaders in Sydney, in Paul Kelly's, Paul Roos, Mark Bays. So when you got there, it was a different direction. But at St Kilda, you didn't know really who your leaders were, because your good players were only 22, 23, and your Harveys and that. So who was that leadership group that was going to take you to the next level? And I think that's where St Kilda failed back then. I mean, Danny Ford was a great leader, but who else was with him? Because a lot of guys used to come from other clubs to St Kilda, so they didn't really have leadership because they were just trying to make a name for themselves.
It's funny. It echoes some parallels, that's for sure. But Nick, you had another one there, I think.
One that I was just gonna wait till last. But Craig, you alluded to it at the top of the show about being suspended in '92. Now there's a story behind what happened in '92, and it's a bit of a strange one. I don't think too many people can say that they've been suspended after a VFL game. So can you tell us a bit what happened there?
Oh, look, I reckon I got 7 weeks for rocking up in overalls. That's what I reckon happened. Anyway, I was playing down at Geelong, and I was playing on Michael Mansfield. Anyway, I was probably frustrated because I wasn't probably playing senior footy anyway. He kept pinching me. I hate players that pinch me. I've got something against it. And I said, listen, if you pinch me again, I'm going to whack you. So he kept pinching me, so I whacked him, right? And I got him well. And then I didn't get reported or anything. He went off the ground with claret and he came back on and he's going, I'm going to get you. I said, yeah, right, whatever. Anyway, after the game, the umpire came up and said, I'm reporting you. I said, well, what for? And he goes, striking. I said, why you report me after the game? the Geelong runner went up and told the umpire what had happened. So I go to the tribunal on the Tuesday night. Anyway, I rocked up in overalls because I was stuck on the other side of Melbourne. I couldn't get home to get changed. I still have my pencils in the bib and brace overalls. So I've rocked in. They've looked at me. So, are you serious? So I go in there anyway. I get on the face thing because Mansfield couldn't get there, and he got up. He goes, "Yep." He stood toe to toe, and he blatantly punched me in the face. All right. So the umpire didn't even see it. Then the umpire got up and blatantly lied. Because if he had seen it on the spot, he would have given me, it's just reported me. So I'm out in the car park leaving there, and he's pulled up next to me. I thought I was fucking irate, I was. So he's pulled up next to me at the lights at Punt Road, and I've looked at him. I thought, right, I've had this bloke, and I've got I had a XA GT Ute, with half the motor hanging out of the bonnet back then. Anyway, so I've gone left, and he's gone left with me. Anyway, he's gone right. And I thought, I'm going to chase him. So I pulled up beside him at the lights. And I reckon I'm about, I don't know, a centimetre from the back of his car. So he's gone through Punt Road and I'm following him. And I thought, because we only had a pub in Richmond, so I was going to go back to the pub there and stay there the night. So I pulled in there and he went through the red light shitting himself. And then I find out that I've been done for harassing an umpire after a tribunal. So I go back to the tribunal and they got the colour of the car wrong. They got all the streets wrong. And they gave me another 7 weeks. So I've got 10 weeks. And this
Probably
is
the
their
only,
word of my life.
must be the only bloke to be suspended for chasing an umpire.
Oh. And then, without a word of a lie, the year after I played, and I was playing good footy at Waverley, and I'm walking down the change rooms at Waverley. Anyway, I've turned around, and there he was. His name was Graham Felt, and I've looked and I've thought, oh, here's my perfect opportunity. He was working for St John's Ambulance at the time. He saw me and he went white, and I reckon he needed his own treatment. But what had happened, right? What had happened? The week after that, he actually got. We made the paper again for a player chesting him in a game. So it kind of looked in my favour that the umpire was out to make a name for himself. Otherwise, I probably would have got 10 years. And people still bring that up. Well, what happened with that umpire? I said, how do you know about that? That was years and years. That was black and white papers back then. Anyway, so I got 10. But that's when I went and trained with the boxer. So, and that got me fitter and made me more hungry, I suppose. If I didn't get the 7 weeks, I wouldn't have got fit, and then, I don't know where I could have ended up.
Yeah, we do our research on this show. So,
But there's a photo there of me walking out with the bib and brace overalls on, and I think that's why I got the 7 weeks.
The segue into that you drove behind an umpire on Punt Road, but the last one for me, how many weeks? I think I asked you off air at the start. In that '96 grand final, is it footage of David King sliding in studs first and nearly killing you at the MCG? How many weeks would he have got for that now? I mean, if you're getting 10 for chasing an umpire.
Yeah, you'd be minimum 10 now because it was deliberate. So, I mean, look, I suppose that's when you look back at one of the disappointing things of your footy is it is hard to make a grand final and to only last as long as I did. And I suppose I had to get stitched up without any anaesthetic because if I had to put anaesthetic in my eye, it would have closed over. So that was an experience itself with getting 12 stitches with no anaesthetic and end up with a cracked cheekbone, which I didn't know until obviously got x-rays the week after. But yeah, look, you look back now and what really gets under my skin is you hear someone like David King going on there saying, oh, you shouldn't be allowed to do that. He should get weeks and weeks. Have a look at the video. And a mate of mine always brings it up when King says something, he texts him, goes, oh, that clown's at it again. He should have got fucking life and all this. So, but that's just that's the way the game is now. If you look at it now, they're a lot fitter, but it's a lot softer. I mean, look what Tony Plugger did to Caven. He would have got 5 years on the incidents that are happening now, and some of them now are just unrealistic. And now, if you have a look at the sling tackle, well, players are now just going to the ground because they are getting slung. It looks worse. They'll bring in a rule now that if you fake a sling tackle, you'll get reported for that. So where's it going to stop and start? And you can see it. It's such a grey area when you see that happen.
It's just like changing any rule to go against another rule. It just rolls one into the other. So yeah, it's a
and Brad Scott, he's come back as coaching and he's brought a lot of these rules in. Yeah, and a lot of them they're just not right. Like as I said, and what happens now if you don't get slung tackle, the ball stays in play longer because the umpires don't blow the whistle. They can have a patch there where it's a tackle after tackle and they don't blow the whistle. But as soon as someone's in a position to apply a sling tackle, they blow the ball and blow it and it gets balled up. So then it stops momentum. It's so grey and we all see it. I think we all hate it, to be honest, because it does. It's just not what footy's about.
And to finish off this year, 150th year at the club, we've been asking everyone who's come on here this year, basically just for yourself, a word, a something, a phrase, anything that to you, what is the St Kilda Football Club, and what does it mean to you, in that sort of thing?
Oh, look, it means a hell of a lot to me. I've still got a lot of good friends that because I was going through that young period there, and my wife's friends with a lot of them, but it felt like a home, put it that way. You go there, and it feels like, because it's not over the top, it feels like a home, and I think that's one of the good things about it. There's great people there, but unfortunately, they've just been starved of success.
Yep, I think that's a fair summary across the board. Craig, thank you very much. It's been great to reminisce on the journey, and hope all is well. Just, I guess, a final one. What are you up to these days?
I coach Broadbeach in the state league up here, which is good. We've got a lot of ex-AFL players up here. Tony Lockett's brother's son plays for me, which is good. And Tony lives up the road, but we don't see him. He never comes out. So we had Jared Hardbrow playing for us last year. I've got Nick Malcheski, who is my assistant coach this year. So it's good footy. We produce a lot of good kids that, like Alex Davies played for us. There's a couple of kids coming through next year that might be drafted. Jake Rogers, who has had a really good Allies Carnival. So yeah, we're a developing team, which means we play kids all the time and they're in and out, and we push guys into the VFL teams as well. So I've been there for 4 years. I was in Central Queensland for 8. We won 6 flags, and we won the most consecutive games ever up there, 120 something games in a row, which only got broken this year. So I coached there for a while, and I'm back on the Gold Coast for the last 4 years, and probably been my last year as coach. And I'll probably hand over to someone like Nick Malcheski, who's a bit of a footy nut, and I think the transition's right now that bring someone like him in. He's highly respected. He's been a great assistant coach. I think he's ready to take over, and I'll just get involved with the director of footy or something like that.
Fantastic. It's been great to reminisce, and great that you're still involved in the game, and obviously Plugger geographically still close to you. Spent a long time next to him and not too far away again. But thanks very much for joining us on the show this week.
Thanks for thinking of me, guys. It's always a pleasure.
There's Craig O'Brien, or I think Windscreens, as Rex Hunt used to call him, obviously. But we head across to Maddie's match, obviously a bit later in the season. We have played Richmond once already this year, but that was their home game at the MCG in monsoonal conditions for Trent Cotchin's 300th game. There was some rumours floating around that he might retire this week just so Richmond could shaft us twice in the same season. But hopefully that doesn't eventuate. Obviously, they rested the majority of their stars and effectively conceded defeat to a finals contender last week, which was nice of them to give them the 4 points and then bring them back this week. But we'll see how we go for this. We generally match up all right on the Tigers. Even earlier in the year, we did. Marvel Stadium is not their favourite venue by any means. And we have had a pretty good record against them there. Obviously, the significance of Maddie's match, donning the purple this week in some way, but at least changes-wise, we've got a few more things to look at. I mean, Sandringham played the Preston Bull Ants, who are one of the battlers in the VFL, certainly, but Tim Membry, 20 possessions, 11 marks and 4 goals is the best he's looked all year at either level. Jack Hayes was solid. Isaac Keeler is the other one that continues to interest. Kicked 3 and moved well again. Might not be quite ready, but I think he's destined to play some footy for us eventually, but not now, maybe. And the other one, but obviously, look, Bytel's had mid-30s, I think. But I'm not sure Ross is a huge rap. Then it comes down to Caulfield potentially, but you'd think Membry, Hayes and Caulfield would be in the mix. And obviously there's a number of players that would perhaps need to be dropped. Do we look, Filippo probably has needed a rest since about round 7, but has kept sort of playing. Caminiti, maybe, for similar reasons. How would you be looking at this week?
It's tough because I don't feel like we have a lot of maybe like for likes sort of thing that we're looking to drop and looking to bring in at the same time. Yeah, whether Gresham does get pushed back out to the sub position now, finally, after we might be able to, might actually be able to do that now. We've got a few players back in, and I mean, Sharman's keeping his spot at the moment, so he's not going to get dropped for Membry. Hayes, are we bringing a second ruckman in? Because that's what they're talking about, playing him in that sort of role. And looking through the names, the only sort of name you're looking at and go, well, Cordy, is he going to be the one who gets dropped? But
probably.
Are we
But
more
then again,
looking
he
to
plays
use him as a
back,
backman? Yeah, it's a lot of shuffling going to happen this week by the looks of it. Caulfield, I think Caulfield's best 22 when he's up and about. I would be having him in the team. Before he got injured, he was playing very good football. And he's quite valuable for us. But we need to find a spot for him. And that's going to be part of the issue. How are we going to slide in? I mean, Stocker's almost taken part of that role when you look at it. Is he going to be the unfortunate one who makes way for Caulfield? But he doesn't deserve to be dropped. It's some real issues there going, okay, who are we going to go with? Philip, as you say, Philippou probably needs that rest. We've probably taken too long to do that. We probably should have rested him probably mid-year, just to have a week off. He's looked like he absolutely took off, absolute on fire to start with, and it's just, as the season gone, just slowed a little bit. He picked up a little bit the last couple of weeks, but yeah, it just hasn't quite got up to that speed of the game yet. And yeah, maybe go back to VFL, have a bit of a run around, bit of fun, get 25, 30 touches. Show us, just get some real football into your hand. And I mean, 8 touches, yes, kick the goal. It's not a massive contribution to what we had on the weekend. But yeah, he's only young, youngest player in the league, as we know. And he's going to build, and he's going to keep building. But I think we've just pushed him a little bit too far. So yeah, it's probably there's your one, but the other two, I'm struggling to find who maybe that would be. It's hard to pinpoint someone right here, right now.
Yeah, I think you're both right. I think Philip, especially given he was the one that made way as the sub, or for the sub on the weekend, I thought that was kind of telling in especially as a tactical sub, that it was him that came off for Stocker. I feel like Membry comes in for Filippo. I think Hayes comes in for Caminiti. I think he's just a little bit off. He's not quite as complimentary to Max as we thought maybe he would be. Whereas Hayes is big body, bash and crash, can hit out in the chop out in the ruck, can play multiple roles, but really is a big body to take some contested mark pressure off Max and really kind of be a big body leader in that forward line alongside the more agile and versatile Membry and the racehorse in Max King. And then Caulfield, I think, is the one. And I don't know, it's a tough one. I feel bad for saying it, but I feel like it's Ryan Burns is someone who comes out. If it is something like Gresham goes back to being the sub and Stocker comes onto the field, which I think is a possibility, and I don't mind that. I think Caulfield's shown in the last couple of weeks, he's got a bit of that dash back. There were some good highlights of him on the weekend for Sandy, pushing through the middle, impacting, delivering really nicely. And I think that he's more of a thoroughbred than Ryan Burns. I think Ryan Burns has been a goer. He's tried. I think he's done a lot of things right this year, and it's probably a bit harsh. But I think we need to see what Nick Caulfield can do, and we need to get him back in the team because I think you're right, H. He's best 22 when he's fit and firing.
Yeah, I think Ross likes him. I just get that impression, or he would like him the way he plays. I think he's certainly one who's in the mix. And yeah, the two ruckman thing is interesting. Obviously, if you're going to play Membry, which I think they need to, you would then probably have to leave someone like Caminiti out in order to play Hayes. We've seen Caminiti and Owens do a bit of ruck work at times. Even Sharman and Cordy have done that. Cordy would be vulnerable, but can play at both ends of the ground. Obviously, Richmond don't have Tom Lynch, but they've got obviously Rewalt. They're playing Noah Cumberland at the moment in that forward half, but they obviously play a lot of those smaller players. Bolton goes forward and these sorts of players. But Dusty will spend a fair bit of time down there as well. But a few listener questions before we get to some awards and some final thoughts on that. Paul asked the question if we would have won if Paddy Dow was playing for us instead. Well, I guess if we believe the off-season rumours, we'll have Paddy Dow and Carlton will have Gresham. So
I was going to say the flip side is would we have won if Gresham had been playing for them?
Yeah, well yes, that's right.
Yeah, I actually offered the Carlton fan stand next to me that trade at half time, and I was told where to go. So, I mean, Dow hadn't even done that much at that stage, and just tells how much Carlton fans don't want Gresham. So it's a interesting situation. See how that goes.
Agree with Wayno. Obviously, he says Machito is the next Fife. Why take him out of the middle when we're screaming for a tall, fast midfielder? FMD. Look, I agree with that. I thought that was a strange move. I actually thought he was hugely influential at the bounces early in the game. 9 in the first quarter, 14 in the first half, and I think we got a bit spooked by a few other things that were happening and had to plug some holes with Mitch. Yeah,
the option to bring in Membry and Hayes as well gives you that flexibility to run Owens through the middle more,
which is where he'll end up. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, and Josh even pointing out that Filippo, potentially that big body midfielder. Look, yes, probably not yet. He's been fine this year, Filippo. Certainly, I think he needed a rest at some stage, but nothing wrong with what he's done this year. But yeah, maybe not quite ready to transition into the middle. And Steve, you're probably right, suggesting that Sharman might do a job on Vlosten and then potentially Tom Stewart next week. Yeah, that's probably the way to go. And a few others that I'll sort of throw around. Shay just asking about plans B and C. Look, I guess that was evident, but the telling question for her was, where can we find leadership we desperately lack? And obviously that was linked to Jack Steele's form. H, I guess that was a disappointing takeaway, was that we didn't have anybody grab the game by the nuts, I guess, in the last quarter when it was slipping away from us.
Yeah, as I was saying earlier, that was the disappointing thing. The leaders were pretty much the first one to drop off, and that they should be the last ones that we lose on the day. They should be the last ones who have pretty much cooked. We don't need to be trying to win a game when our best players are all 18, 19, 20 years old. And it's not going to win you games of football, especially against a form team. As I said, they did the job in the first half. For some reason, just couldn't continue it on. I mean, it's whether they were just absolutely cooked from their first half and they just had nothing left. Is the season has been that telling, or it just, I know they were just sapped and they couldn't give any more, and it's hard to tell what actually went on there, whether there was just nothing left in anyone, and it was hard. As saying, if Mitchie goes down the middle of that after that stage as well, is that what we needed at that point? Him in the middle to just running, and that's basically what we could have done. But he still needs that support from those bash and crash players in the middle of Steele and Crouch, and I mean we could have thrown maybe even a Butler into the middle at some point, just to change it up. Just if they're that tired in the middle, throw him in there. It's you've got to try things when things aren't working, and that goes back to, I guess, that question just above there as well, the plan B and C. I mean, I think it felt like we went back to plan A when plan B had been one that was working for most of the day. We went back to the old old what we were doing previously and wasn't working. So, yeah, we should have stuck to plan B by the looks of it.
There's a clear void, I think, in leadership, and it's been spoken about a lot over the last few days, as we know, and it's not a crack at Jack Steele. I think Jack Steele is a good leader. You know, he leads by example. He's not a huge voice. He doesn't talk a lot. He doesn't yell. You know, but he drags other blokes alongside him and on his back, and he's certainly carried our team on his shoulders a number of times over the last 4 or 5 years. And so this isn't a crack at Jack Steele, but when guys like Steele and Crouch, who's again a senior leader who leads by performance, leads by expectation, leads by requirement, just by doing his job is being a leader. When those two guys aren't performing to expectation or aren't able to perform to expectation, whether it's being tagged out of the game, whether it's injury and soreness and whatever, like it seems to be the case in Jack's case, you know, we do miss that other option of someone who's able to, you know, provide a voice and provide that kind of whatever it is. I think we've spoken about how we've seen that we miss Dougal Howard when he's not there, and it's a structural thing. But I think there is a bit of that straighten up, you know, kind of, you know, really loud vocal presence in defence. But I think also we underestimate the loss of Tim Embry all year. We've seen for a period of time when things need to change, it's often been Tim Embry. And I've said for a couple of years, I don't think it was Brett Ratton making changes to swing Tim Embry back. I think that was Tim Embry identifying something and going back and carrying himself as a leader to, you know, make a decision, make a change, make a call, and go and do something about it. And I think that we've lacked that as well. And I think we've underrated Tim Embry. I think we've underestimated the impact of missing Tim Embry has had on our list. And I think, you know, when you're missing guys like Steele and Crouch, or they go missing like they did in that final quarter, someone like Tim Embry who can identify a lack of something or something that needs to change and something that he needs to impact, I think that was a huge void. And I hope that we see him back for the last few weeks of the season, if it is our last few weeks of the season, because I think it would be a good way to kind of recognise what he brings to the footy club when he's back.
Definitely. And look, a few of the others there, St. Twit FC, in regards to the captaincy, I'll talk about that in a minute. Greg really liked the nature of the question in regards to the retire trade one more year, but just might stick a pin in that just until we see what does happen in the next few weeks, but then revisit it. The one thing I'll say on the Steele thing, look, Wilkie's carried himself fine as a leader, no problems at all, and people are right with what they've said about Jack, and it was an incredibly disappointing last quarter on the weekend, but he kind of reminds me a little bit of what Patrick Cripps went through a couple of years ago, where he was carrying significant injuries, could barely move. Carlton were battling a little bit. He was carrying them through the middle. He was banged up. He wasn't getting as much of the ball as he normally did. He was trying to lead the team. And people were asking those questions, thinking, well, you know, is his best footy past him? Is he the right man to lead them, given, you know, he's not getting as much of the footy as he used to do? The reality was he was playing hurt and playing injured and not getting a lot of support. And I think Jack this year, as much as he hasn't been necessarily as brilliant as he was in 20 or 21 or even parts of last year, he's carried a couple of shoulder injuries. He's carried a bung knee. He's been coming back early from those injuries under duress. He's been playing with pain. He's played games out with injury. He carried us over the line in a couple of games earlier this year. I think we can be a little bit critical. I know he's not got the booming presence and the voice and all of that sort of stuff, but I think his courage in the face of adversity is the type of leadership that we've probably needed this year, to be honest. So, yeah, I think we've just got to allow Jack to get a run at it and just say, look, mate, you've been an absolute warrior. Have a pre-season where you're not hurt, get a bit more support around the middle, and do your thing from there. So, yeah, I think we've got to give Jack a little bit of a pass based on all that he's had to deal with, I think
the question is not whether Jack's a good enough leader to be the captain of our footy club, but if he's not right and he's not able to be Jack Steele, should he be playing?
That's the
like
question.
There's what is best for the team, and if
he'll
Jack's
play if
not
he
able
cut
to
off
be
his
Jack,
arm. Yeah,
that's right. But and you want Jack Steele in your team every week because he does bring all those intangibles that you want from a leader, right? Like it's not the voice, it's not the presence, but it's the things that he does on the field. It's the chasing, the harassing, the tackling, the 1%ers, the pressure, all that sort of stuff. He does all of that at an elite level. And so, there's the team thing. Like, obviously, you want Jack Steele out there, but if he's not able to be Jack Steele, is it more of a hindrance to the team? But then at an even higher level, we talk so much about duty of care for individuals now, and whether it's head injuries or whatever it is. But if a guy's not right, and clearly for much of the year Jack Steele hasn't been right, should he be out there?
It's a catch-22 because obviously the Sydney game and the North game, if he doesn't play in the last quarter, we lose both of those games.
Mm-hmm.
But then obviously you get the counter when it doesn't work, like on Sunday, it's pivotal to us getting overrun in the game. So, yeah, you'd hope you're right with all of that duty of care, and you don't want him to end up with something that he carries for a couple of years and loses a yard of pace. And I know there's even that talk around him trimming down a little bit when he was always a bit more of a bull, whether that sort of suited him to play that way. But yeah, I think that you weigh up inspiration versus output, and on the most part, he's probably come out okay. But yeah, we'll see what the next few weeks does hold, and hopefully the start of the finals, because I think Craig O'Brien hit the nail on the head a little bit earlier. I want to touch on that a bit later. That I think because we expect bad things, we plan for them a little bit. And look, we've been right most of the time, but we'll see. H, did you want to kick us off with the Jason Blake Award? It might be difficult to find in a match like that, or maybe there's an obvious one.
I gave him a vote earlier, but yeah, I think the work Josh Battle's done in the absence of Dougal has been pretty big. He's stepped up pretty well, and over the last few weeks done the job quite well, and hopefully he can continue that on because he's got some pretty big jobs coming up. So yeah, keep it going.
Nick?
It is a tough one. It is a tough one. I wanted to give it to Cooper Sharman. I know it wasn't his best game. He didn't have the highlights. I think he flew a couple of times in the first half, but again didn't bring it down. But I think the role that he's been playing has been a little bit of a more selfless role than what we've come to see from Cooper over the last couple of years, in that he has been taking that defender out of the game. That's been his role, is to nullify the impact of an intercept mark defender. We saw him do it to incredible effect against Sicily a couple of weeks ago. And I think that he's understanding more about his own football IQ. And I think that the coaching staff is utilizing that to really good effect at the moment. It doesn't always show up on the stat sheet. It doesn't always show up on the scoreboard. But, when you can nullify a really key impact player like he's done over the last probably 4 to 5 weeks, and become a really important part of our structure, because it doesn't hit the stat sheet that often. I think we kind of gloss over his impact, but he's been really good for the last month.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think he's been really important for us. Hunter Clark for mine. I think his month back in the side each week's been a little bit better than the one before. He was a sub against the Gold Coast, had an impact. Bit quiet against North, but was okay late. Played a solid game against Hawthorn, and then was one of our best in the first half against Carlton. Kept working hard, laid 10 tackles. So I think his month back, he's been building pretty nicely, and he's an important player for us, even with a little bit of upside. The Shannon Knoll Award, mine's probably collectively, I know I just mentioned Hunter Clark, but mine's collectively for the midfield. I think I mentioned a few weeks ago that Ross Lyon doesn't say things by accident, and he said in the press conference without being prompted that our midfield was spluttering. And I think that was after we beat West Coast, maybe. And he was talking a bit about that. Our midfield was exposed massively in that second half. That's where we lost the game, to be honest. Our forwards didn't score, but we didn't get the footy down there, and our defence held up as much as they could, only conceded 10, but we got absolutely murdered in the middle. So, I know they've had some personnel changes with Jones injured and Hill's gone in and out, and obviously Steele's sore and Ross is injured. And I think we've actually missed Seb, to be honest, as another body in there, as much as he's got his limitations. But yeah, that midfield group, we'll lose every game if they play like that. So, they certainly need a lift. H, anything for you?
I think we just got to go back to similar players that we've been looking at for weeks on weeks now. There's a few probably, I don't know, last chances for a couple of players. That Ryan Bird's been quiet for a few weeks now. He's probably got to pick himself up and get going again if he wants to keep his position. If we do manage to make finals, you got we need Max King to get back into it. He's back in the team. He's basically having a last crack for this year before he'll go get his shoulder looked at again. So, I mean, he's come back in under the guys that he's right to play. So hopefully we can see that, yes, that is the case. He's not struggling with the shoulder. He's not being a liability up forward. It's basically the right decision to be playing him. And yeah, just I guess maybe the team, the coaches, the selection team, they're looking at the players like Filippo and a couple of the other young players to go, just are they right to be playing right now? So just a combination of players on their last possible legs for the season and selections. We've got a couple of big weeks coming up. They need to be right. So yeah, let's hope that what the team we put out in the field is the right team to do the job that we need to be done.
Nick?
Yeah, well, I think there's a few. There's a few from the weekend, and the obvious one is Jade Gresham, as we've been talking about throughout much of the year in the last couple of years. The midfield group as a whole, like you said, Parko, maybe a little bit harsh and go Mason Wood. I gave him 2 votes because I think he was still probably our best player, or at least one of our best couple. But this comes down to moments, and there was a patch of about 8 minutes in the first half of the third quarter where he did all the hard work and would take an intercept mark or would win his own ball, and then in the same play turn it back over. And we were struggling to win the ball. We were struggling to get our hands on it and to keep up with Carlton at that point, and to give them easy ball back, easy possession back across half back or the center of the ground was a killer, especially when it happened multiple times in a short period. And I thought that was the biggest single thing that we as a team did that lost us the game, was we just gave up control of the ball when we were already struggling to win it, but then time after time we gave it back to him. And so I think Mason Woods had a fantastic year, and just a little bit over the last month or so has let himself down in moments, whether it's not holding a mark at fullback, like an intercept mark at fullback, or getting 2 hands on the ball at the top of the goal square and dropping it, or missing a tackle, or like in this case where it was just in a 6 or 7 minute period, turning the ball over 3 or 4 times in a really important part of the ground. There's just been a few little things that have crept into his game over the last month or so.
Yeah, and I think that just points to that lack of maturity where we had chances to recontrol the game or settle things down and just never took them. We'd rush, we'd miss chances, we'd turn the ball over when we didn't need to play on, and just little things like that was just crucial when composure was required and we were the side ahead in the game. I guess that's so St Kilda. I don't know if anyone has any other than Richmond rolling everyone back this week.
If
Blake Acres and Paddy
retirement,
Dow being best on ground last week.
Yeah, first time he's kicked multiple goals since he kicked 2 1/4 for us against the Giants in 2017. So, nice of him to do that against us for the first time in 6 years. But
it'd be the whole thing of if Cochin retires and then all of a sudden Jack Riot goes, "Nah, I'm retiring too," and I know they
hopefully they wait for a home
announce their
game,
new coach this week as McQualter. I mean, plenty of things they could do just to stuff the whole week up for us, I'm sure.
What I'm hoping they do is, they play Port in the last round, but they play North at home next week. So you'd think they'd announce it leading
That's
up
when
to a home game, and a home game they'll win for sure. So you'd think they'd wait for that.
Leave it
But
for then.
you never know. You never know. They might want to cook us. But hopefully Jack's got in the back of his mind, it's Matty's match. I'll leave that alone this week and do that all next week whilst this match has got its own attention. But we'll see. I guess my final thoughts would be, and look, I know it's been a frustrating couple of weeks and we're programmed to deal with that level of disappointment. But the reality is, we've spent 21 consecutive weeks in the 8. We're still there now. There's 3 to go. We're effectively still in control. That was a bad loss to Carlton, probably the worst of the year in terms of how it felt and what it did for us. But I reckon post-mortems and reflection are for when it's done, and it's not done yet. You got Richmond on Sunday. You win that game, you stay in the 8. You could potentially be as high as 5th if results go according to plans. Again, a fortnight out from the finals. So my attitude has always been one of absolute defiance in this situation. It's like, we are in the 8, and if you want the spot, come and get it. I don't believe in. There seems to be a mindset amongst fans going, what's the point of making it? Or here we go again, we're shit again, and all of that. And that may well be right, but it hasn't happened yet. So the reality of the situation is, go to Marvel, go to wherever you're watching it, get behind them, try to drag them across the line against Richmond and fight on for one more week. It's not done. So just dig in and keep the season alive, keep going. I would mount a very, very strong case that we deserve to make the 8 ahead of a lot of those sides below us on the ladder. Don't just let them take the spot. Hold on. And just see what you can do. Even if you get bounced out in the first week, the experience for kids like Filippo and Caminiti and Owens and Windhager is invaluable. Do not give up without a fight.
On that same vein, I think as well, like your finals is in our own hands.
Exactly.
We play some good footy. We win 1, 2 more games, then we're in the finals. And where we should, like you said, where we should be. If you'd said in our preseason preview that at round 22, heading into round 22, we will have been in the 8 every single week of the season.
The entire season, yeah.
I would have said, you are crazy.
Yeah.
You are crazy. And so, we have performed above expectation. We deserve to be where we are because we've won enough games to be where we are. That is the simple reality. The other point is, like you said, Parko, what's the point of making the 8 and getting bounced in the first week? There's a distinction between finishing bottom 3 and getting a top 3 draft pick, or finishing 9th or 10th and getting a mid first round draft pick. And if the option was to finish 7th or 8th or finish 9th or 10th, I'm taking 7th or 8th every time. Every time.
Yeah. And why would you? And you don't necessarily get bounced because all of those sides are vulnerable.
That's right.
Like if you finish,
and we've beaten half of them.
Exactly. And if you finish 5th or 6th or 7th, you get another one of your own selves anyway. Like you get the Bulldogs or Geelong or GWS or Carlton or something like that. So it's not exactly an impossible task.
And we played, regardless of what happens, we played pretty good football against Collingwood in Adelaide. We played pretty good football against Port. We've played some pretty good football against a bunch of teams that are going to be in or around the finals. So anything can happen week to week, and we've seen it for decades.
Yep, just don't give up would be the key theme out of that. The season is still very much in your hands.